Greetings, Guardians. This is Olympus Alliance. And today we're not just talking about a support hero. We're talking about one of the smartest answers to what is becoming one of the most dangerous threats in the game right now. Because with the recent changes, with damage over time becoming more consistent, more unavoidable, and in some cases completely shifting how fights are decided, one hero quietly rises again into the spotlight. And that hero is Amira. Now let's be clear right from the start, because this is important. Amira does not directly counter Iris. She doesn't stop her completely, she doesn't erase her from the fight, and she doesn't shut her down in the traditional sense. But what she does is something just as powerful. She delays her. She disrupts her timing. And most importantly, she interferes with the one thing that makes Iris feel completely broken right now. Her fourth skill. Because that is where the real danger comes from. That is where the pressure builds, where the damage stacks, where the fight starts slipping away from you. And if you can delay that moment, even slightly, you can completely change the outcome of the battle. And that's exactly where Amira comes in. Because Amira is not just a support. She is a tempo controller disguised as a support. A hero that doesn't win by brute force, but by shaping the fight, by controlling when things happen, and by punishing enemies exactly at the right moment. At first glance, she might seem simple. A genie applying effects weakening enemies, spreading cursed gold across the battlefield. But what many players underestimate is what happens next. Because once those enemies are marked, once that cursed gold is in place, the countdown begins. And 10 seconds later, everything explodes. And when it does, it's not just damage. It's devastation. We're talking about a burst that feels like an atomic detonation, a moment where all the preparation, all the control, all the timing suddenly converts into overwhelming damage that can wipe entire teams if they are not ready. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Amira doesn't work alone. And in fact, her true power only reveals itself when you start building around her timing, around her rhythm, around her ability to control the pace of the fight. Take Celeste, for example. With her fast magic attack boosts, she amplifies everything Amira does, pushing her numbers higher, accelerating her impact, and at the same time, as a mystery faction hero, she increases the health of the cursed gold itself, making the explosion even more threatening. But Celeste brings something else. Something subtle, but incredibly important. She cleanses. She removes debuffs. And at the same time, she converts excess healing into damage, meaning that while your team stays stable, the enemy is constantly being pressured, constantly being weakened, constantly being prepared for that final moment. Then comes Lian. And this is where control truly enters the equation. Because Amira's explosion is powerful. But it depends on the state of the fight. If enemies are moving freely, if they are attacking, if they are activating defenses at the wrong time, the impact can be reduced. Lian prevents that. She calms the battlefield. She stops aggression. She forces enemies into a controlled state where they cannot interfere with the timing of Amira's setup. And when everything aligns, when enemies are weakened, controlled, and unable to react, the explosion becomes inevitable. Then we move into something more unexpected. Something more strategic. Folio? Because Folio doesn't just deal damage. He manipulates timing. His ink copies near Amira accelerate her energy gain, pushing her out of predictable patterns, breaking the expected flow of the fight, and creating situations where her ultimate doesn't come when the enemy expects it. And that is where fights are won. Because in high-level gameplay, predictability is weakness. And Folio removes that weakness completely. Now add Jorgen into the mix. And suddenly the entire system locks into place. Because if timing is everything, then controlling enemy energy becomes the ultimate weapon. Jorgen prevents enemies from gaining energy properly, delaying their ultimates, stopping defensive artifacts from activating at the right moment, and creating a window. A perfect window. Where Amira's damage lands without resistance. 9 seconds. That's all she needs. 9 seconds where the enemy cannot respond properly. Cannot activate defenses. Cannot disrupt the timing. And in those 9 seconds, the battle is decided. This is not just synergy. This is control over the entire system. And now, bring it back to the current state of the game. With damage over time becoming more consistent, more unavoidable, more dangerous. Fights are no longer just about surviving bursts. They are about managing pressure over time. And this is exactly why Amira becomes even more valuable now. Because while she doesn't directly counter Iris, she interferes with her rhythm. She delays her impact. She creates space. And in a meta where timing defines everything, that delay can be the difference between winning and losing. So if you are facing teams that rely on sustained pressure, on stacking effects, on overwhelming you over time, Amira gives you a way to fight back. Not by brute force. Not by direct counters. But by control. By timing. By precision. And that is what makes her so dangerous. So if you're looking for a hero that can adapt to the new mechanics, that can handle pressure, that can turn the fight in your favor without needing to overpower the enemy directly, Amira is not just a good option. She is one of the smartest options you can make right now. And this is only the beginning. Because as the game continues to evolve, as new mechanics come in, as heroes become stronger and more unpredictable, understanding tempo, understanding timing, understanding control, will separate good players from great ones. Stay tuned, stay sharp. And as always, salute and friendship.